We're now live on YouTube.
Lovely. Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Wellbeing panel. Just to say thank you all for coming. We've got a couple of big items on the agenda tonight, but I think, yeah, it's a lot to talk about, but that's good. Can I just ask, first of all, can you make sure you've got your phones turned off? Just so you don't embarrass yourself in the middle of the meeting. That'd be good. I've got you all on my screen, which is good. So I should be keeping my eyes open for you putting your hands up, but also if you put in the chat function, if you want to ask a question, and I shall try to get you in order as much as I can. Okay, so excellent. Thank you. So first of all, if we do a roll call and declarations of interest, so if I hand you over to Dawn, thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, I just lost my mouse there for a moment. Do apologise. Okay, Chairman, let's do a roll call. Councillor Crotch.
Present, and one declaration: I own a residential property for rental in the Broadland area.
Thank you very much. Councillor Folger.
You're on mute.
You're clear to go now, Councillor Folger.
Right, thank you. Present, no declarations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lorne.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Murrell.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Neeson.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Pratton.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Shaw.
No declarations.
And Councillor Wymark.
Present, no declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, so the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of August 2020. So if I go through page by page, and if anyone's got anything, if you let me know. So page 5. No. Page 6. Page 7 and page 8. Okay, so if you're all happy with that, I shall virtually sign them as such. Okay, thank you. Oh, do I need someone to second them? If I propose them, someone to second them as a true record?
Yep, Councillor Shaw.
Councillor Shaw, yeah, okay.
Do you want to do a show of hands, Chairman, to
yes, I think so.
Minutes? Yeah.
Yep. If we just show of hands, say we're happy with the minutes.
I wasn't present.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
Thank
fine,
you,
Chairman.
Oh, Councillor Folger's back with us. I think we lost connection with him for a moment. So I'll just give him a moment to get back in the meeting. Councillor Folger, you back with us?
I'm back with you, yes.
Excellent, great stuff. We've just agreed the minutes of the meeting on the 5th of August.
Right,
okay. So we're just going to move on.
I concur with that one, yeah.
Okay, okay, all right. Are there any matters arising from this? I don't think there are. It was only really one item, and it was just to agree the Greater Norwich homelessness strategy and obviously the South Norfolk and Broadland Rough Sleeper statement. That was a single item on the agenda. So I don't think there's anything arising from that for myself. Is there anyone else? No? Okay, good. We'll move on to the first item as such, which is item number 5, housing standards enforcement policy. Kevin, are you going to speak to us about this?
I am going to, Chair.
I thought you might, but so if I hand over to you,
okay,
and then we'll open up to questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, councillors. Just a brief bit of history. The councils have been responsible for enforcing housing standards in the private renter sector for decades. In 1985, it was the Housing Act, which had a fitness standard, and that was replaced in 2004 with a hazard risk approach, and where you have to assess 29 hazards to replace the fitness standard. And there were procedures in there to enforcement, such as prohibition notices and enforcement notices, improvement notices. Since 2004, there's been a multitude of additional legislation, such as redress schemes for estate agents, smoke alarm testing, and the Housing and Planning Act brought in civil procedures and new ways of actually the council initiating its own procedures for non-compliance. Recently, we've had electrical regulations which require civil penalty procedure to be authorised by policy. So that's a new policy that has actually required approval for us then to use civil penalties as a procedure of dealing with landlords non-compliant with electrical regulations. Regulation require 5-year checks in properties, and for the checks to be in place for new tenancies from the 1st of April next year, and existing tenancies from the 1st of April this year, and from June the 1st this year for new ones. I apologise for that. There's also requirements for banning orders that require to be put in policy as well. So with those two policy requirements, we decided to put all our enforcement procedures that are statutory duties, as in we have a duty to deal with the process, we put them into a single document detailing all the legislation that we have a duty to comply with. Also, we've actually put in the policy when we will use informal action and when we will use formal action. So if we're ever challenged as to why we carried out a procedure in a particular way, we've got an approved policy that we can fall back on to say we did that with approved policy. So you've probably seen that all the actual detail is put in the appendix, which is all the actual legislation, the various forms of legislations that we have. Some of them I've described here to you, and the procedures involved in actually administering them are detailed in that appendix. I'm not going to go through that in detail, but what I'm happy to do is take any questions regarding the detail in that appendix.
You're on mute, Chairman.
You're on mute, Chair. You're on
Must
mute.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Yeah, it must be the most stated phrase over the last few months. You're on mute. However, yes. Yeah, sorry. So, Kevin, thanks very much. As I say, obviously, this is just, well, not just, it's important, really. As you say, there's additional statutory duties that need to be put in here so we comply with the law. That's ultimately what we're talking about, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to put in a civil penalty procedure for the electrical regulations for us to administer those regulations, and that has to be passed by policy. And all the properties we go into post policy decision, we will be ticking a box of whether they have electrical safety certificate and whether it's in date.
Okay, lovely. Okay, thank you. And so this will be well, assuming we adopt it in November, that's when it will go to the council, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. All right, thank you. All right, okay, so I'll open up to questions. Do I see a few hands up? If I start with Sue Lawn and then Kevin Murrell, Dr.
Okay.
Councillor Folger, should I say?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just, I appreciate that this is a new regulation. So how are we going to police this? Do you have a record of all the tenancies that you would need to go and check, or how does it work?
Okay, that's a reasonable question. It's not a statutory duty for you to have a record of every rental property on your district. It's a statutory duty for you to administer regulations. So and it's a reactive process in Broadland, and it is in most authorities due to resource implications. So if somebody comes to us, I've got a leaking roof, I've got rising damp, I've got black mold in my property, we would go there, and as a matter of course in that property we would go through the various requirements. So even though they may say there's a leaking roof, we would check to see that there's a smoke alarm on both on every floor. I'm thinking even 2 floors, but because there has to be a smoke alarm on every floor. We would check the electrical certificate. We would check the EPC requirement, which is another legislation that we have to actually use. So there's a variety of things we go when we actually visit a property, and to make sure we adhere to all the legislation we have to. But we don't have a duty to have a record of every rental property in the district, and that's known as a registration scheme, and that would be a compulsory registration scheme, and we haven't got that in our district, and not many districts have.
No, thank you. Apologies. I should have realised that. Whenever, as soon as you started to speak, I realised that what I was saying. No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, Councillor Murrell.
Thank you. It was probably a really quick question, hopefully. So reading through all of the paper, is the only change the adoption of the electrical safety standards, or are there other bits that have amended within the policy?
There is no major change. What it has actually done is incorporate various papers through the past into a single document.
Right.
Because I could have just put in, as I did with the redress policy, as I did with the smoke alarm procedures, where with the smoke alarm, by law you have to have a statement of principles on your website, and that has to be agreed by the portfolio owner at that time. So I could have done individual, I could have just put a electrical regs paper to you and a banning order paper to you. But what I've done to actually get approval is a full comprehensive policy of our statutory procedures, to put it all in one place and make it easier to administer and make it easier to use as a reference should we be challenged in any of the legislation that we actually deal with. So it wasn't necessary to put everything to you at this particular moment in time, but it seemed a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine with the. I was just trying to look at the major changes from other policy that we had and
Yeah.
the impacts on whatever. And my secondary question was on page 31 and page 34 in the appendices, where it's got the penalty amounts and everything, and it's more just background rather than anything else. Do we have any quantum of number of cases that have been brought under?
As an authority, we have done a single civil penalty procedure. However, that may not sound many, but there aren't many provisional authorities of the size of Broadland that have actually done it at all. Usually it's a procedure initiated in the Metropolitan, because it takes a bit of resource to actually do civil penalties in the first place. So we're quite pleased we've adopted it and moved forward. I mean, using that £9,500 to further administration in this area. We're actually going to get somebody in to help inspect some of our HMOs. So we have actually used it. We followed it through. It is a bureaucratic process. You have to actually follow the same legal processes as you would do as if you were doing a prosecution. So you have to present a case that is as strong as it would be if it was going to court. But we have actually done it, so we've got experience of it. And in my opinion, it is likely to be used more in the future. But in this particular moment in time, we at Broadland have done one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Folger.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think what is happening now, that this is a continuation of the procedure which was commenced when I was the portfolio holder for housing, where clearly it was the intention to get all the locally problems, etc., established under one head. And when we're now getting more and more items put into a document which will cover us for any happening in this field. That's correct, is it not?
That's absolutely correct, Councillor. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Neeson? No? Oh, sorry, I thought you had your hands up. Sorry, okay. Councillor Shaw then.
Thank you. Actually, this does go with this, but it's something that I brought up when I was at county before 2016. I'd mentioned it quite a few times about carbon monoxide detectors. Now, it was never brought in for some reason, and we've all seen things on the news where people have died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. And I always said that big blocks of houses, flats, and rented properties and social housing should all have these. Now, what's happened about that? Because it just seems to have been ignored.
Actually, Councillor, carbon monoxide are actually part of the smoke alarm regulations. What they actually require in any room with a solid fire is that there is a carbon monoxide detector, and that is another tick box on our inspection procedure. So if you've got a solid heater, solid fuel heater in your property, you must have a carbon monoxide detector in there. That's a matter of statute as well. So they are included. With regard to if you've got a basic gas and we're concerned, what we would actually look for is basic signs of carbon monoxide. For the first thing I would look at if I was looking at a property with a gas heater, if it's got a balanced flue. If it's got a balanced flue, that reduces the risk considerably. If it's got a balanced flue, I'd still be looking for a yellow flame. If there's no yellow flame, and the gas safety certificate is in place, then we're fine. But there's a few indicators there that most EHOs would look at if they were going to a property. But as for statutory regulation, it is included where there's a solid heater in the room. Solid fuel heater.
Oh, that's good. Well, it must have happened after I left county then.
Yeah, that came in the smoke alarm regs. I think that was about 15, but I may be out with my year.
Okay,
it's also covered on page 26 in item 2.2.15 under the smoke and carbon monoxide regulations 2015.
Good.
Oh, 15, I was right.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, that's
Well
when
done.
I left.
Yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Long, did you want to come back?
Sorry, there's just one other question, and it's not covered in this report, but because we're quite a lot of Broadland runs alongside the Broads Authority and the water, and there's quite a lot of residential accommodation on the water. Do we have no jurisdiction at all? Do we have nothing that we can do in relation to boats? I see we've got caravan sites, but do we have nothing with houseboats or anything along those lines?
Well, this is an area which is an area of weakness in legislation. They've tightened up over lots of things. They haven't tightened up over houseboats. Our only option, if we get a complaint from a resident who's renting a houseboat regarding issue, is a term premises in statutory nuisance, and the only precedent of that is a premises prejudicial to health. So you'd have to go in there and you'd have to go into the boat and you'd have to consider that the electrics wasn't safe. You'd have to think that there's carbon monoxide. Premises prejudicial to health in case law doesn't relate to physical injury. So if there was a step missing and you fell down and broke your leg, that wouldn't be classed as prejudicial to health, rightly or wrongly, but there's case law to defend that. But if there was a faulty boiler which was yellow, that carbon monoxide would be prejudicial to health, or there was noxious substances, that would be prejudicial to health. So it's more of an illness causing prejudicial to health rather than a physical. But that's the only legislation that officers have got regarding conditions on houseboats. It's something we've looked at quite a lot, and I've looked at it recently, so I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, because I just find it incredible that there isn't anybody who seems to be monitoring. You know, most of the houseboats are all using fossil gas, and we don't know that the gas is even stored safely, or that it's the carbon monoxide side of it is safe as well. So that was just a concern that I have. Been and talked to Andrew. You know that we've got some residential houseboats and people living on boats. And it just concerns me that there's nobody monitoring that.
Well, there's more complications than we've been discussing with MP Law, the authorisation of that, because the river is a difficult issue regarding the boundary issue as well. But we've been discussing with MP Law regarding that. That isn't cleared yet. Once we've cleared that, we would have a more direct route into actually dealing with them as and when became a requirement. As I say, we can't use housing legislation. The only legislation, it's because of those boats, I've looked up that legislation. The only thing we can use is premises prejudicial to health.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big one, isn't it?
That's actually in the Environmental Protection Act 1990, nothing to do with housing legislation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question, Kevin? And so on that basis then, so the housing standards as such, the policies are adhered to and actually applied by ourselves, Broadland, not by the Broad Authority, for going on from what Sue says there. So we actually sort of administer this. It wouldn't be the Broad Authority.
No, if we had a complaint regarding tenancy boats on that river at a particular point, it would either be us or Norwich. The actual boundary of the river actually is Norwich. The bed of the river is Norwich. The Norwich responsibility. So what we're doing with MP Law at the moment, and it's not needs chasing up. It has slacked because of COVID. I would agree to that.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is get an agreement with Norwich through MP Law that just to save any issue that our officers are authorised under Broadland and Norwich. And that because theoretically, while they're actually on the river, if we would serve a notice there, that could possibly be challenged because it's Norwich responsibility. But if you were authorised under Norwich as well, that would get around that particular point. So it's something that needs chasing up. It has disappeared a little bit with the COVID situation. It was earlier in the year we were looking at it, and indeed officers from my team were on the island earlier in the year. It's something that needs chasing up. But once we've got that on complaint, we could go in, and we did get a particular complaint. That's why our officer was across there. That the person who's complained has since left that particular boat unit. But because of the question mark on authority, we've taken that issue up with MP Law.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, that is good to have clarity there, as you say.
Yeah.
So when or if you need to actually apply these policies, then you can. Otherwise, you're in a difficult situation, aren't you? Excellent.
And
okay.
So can I just ask you again? You said that came under the Environment and Health 1990. What did you say that was?
The premises prejudicial to health comes under the Environment Protection Act 1990.
Protection. Okay.
Section 79.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well done. Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. All right. Are there any more questions? No. Okay. I can't see anyone. Okay. On that basis, I'd like to make the recommendation as in the papers here on page 12. That's 8.1. 1, which is consider and approve the council's new housing standards enforcement policy. So I'd like to propose that we do approve this policy.
I'll second that.
Just second it.
Okay, so or Nigel or Sue.
Nigel beat me to it.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so Councillor Shaw, thank you. All right, should we vote? We do raise hands. Is that okay? Can you see us all?
Yeah.
Okay,
just check everyone's raised. That looks unanimous, Chairman.
Yep, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Kevin, very much for your knowledge and insight. And very helpful indeed. So thank you. If you want to be elsewhere, I'm sure we can let you go. But it's lovely to see you, Kevin.
Well, thank you very much, and I shall leave. I have to go and have my tea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Right. So we now go on to item 6, which is the vision for a best-in-class housing offer and draft allocation scheme, which I pass over to Victoria and Richard. If Richard's going to, he is with us. Excellent. Hi, Richard. So yeah, I mean, obviously, as many of us here will know, we've had a large number of workshops to get to this point, and enormous amount of work's gone in here. So I'll just hand over to you, really, rather than waffle on. Okay, so
thank you, Chairman. I was just going to just start off. That's okay, but you've actually done it for me already. But that's a seamless handover. Just to say, I appreciate that. Obviously, several people in the room have been on the working group, which is fantastic. Several councillors, but we've had some informal presentations as well. And it's just this really, for me, is the chance we've had a really fantastic opportunity here to look at two policies and bringing those two councils together, working, still ensuring that their own residents are supported, but working with that one team approach. And you'll see in this report and the addendum that was sent out, the efficiencies that this brings is, as well as development of best-in-class model is a real opportunity. So I know some of most of you have seen the presentation before, but just to say, this is the kickstart of the formal process for that. So I'd certainly welcome your views tonight. Victoria, do you want to?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I can come in on this. I just wanted to make a point because it's quite a long report, so there's probably quite a bit of detail to go through. So I don't know if the chair agrees, if it would be prudent for me to sort of go through some points and then pause for questions, and then to carry on going through other points, if that would make it simpler for people.
I think that would probably be a good idea, Victoria, because there is an enormous amount in here. So yeah, I think so. If you're happy to do it, just tell us when you're going to stop, and we'll. I'm sure we'll have questions coming up in the chat in the meantime. Okay. Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to follow on for what Mike was saying. So yes, the project was predicated on sort of bringing together the one team approach. But also, and I think we state this in the report, is as the project started, we went into that pandemic period. So it's almost like the project came at the worst possible time, but actually it also meant we're in a really good position to design something that will enable the council to meet the challenge. So particularly around the increase in demand we're going to see as the economic impact deepens. So within that, we want to make sure that we've got the best use of our resources, but we also want to make sure that we're giving residents the opportunity to increase their resilience and also have clarity of choice in their housing options, but also means that we as a council can support those who are more vulnerable or have more complex support needs. So just in terms of the report findings from the consultants we engaged, Campbell to Kell, and in relation to a pandemic responsive service, the consultants noted that the council has good outcomes in terms of preventing and relieving homelessness. However, this is mainly facilitated through the social housing sector, which in a continued COVID-19 landscape isn't going to be sustainable or as preventative as we would like, as people are more likely to approach this in crisis. So what they've done is they've developed a best-in-class housing offer model, which includes a comprehensive accommodation pathway model over 4 stages. So the first of these is the marketplace, and this is our universal one-stop shop offer. So this is about encouraging people to think about their housing options and even any future housing needs as well. So this could be around thinking about potentially leaving home, looking at how to save up for a rental deposit, or even looking at affordable housing options in the future. The main idea is about having that thinking and doing space before it gets to be a housing issue. And then if we move on to stage 2, which is prevention. So this is about the council doing that bit more preventative work with households. So seeing if we can enable them to stay in their current homes or looking for alternatives, or really just trying to avoid that housing crisis. And then stage 3 is stabilisation. So this is about providing the right temporary accommodation when it's needed and putting in place that support so households are ready to move on onto more sustainable accommodation, either in the social or private sector. And then finally, we've got stage 4, which is resolution. So that's resolving homelessness, but also looking at ongoing support. So we don't want to move a household into a property and have them approach us again in a year's time in crisis. So we can work with the landlords and other support services to give that bit extra support to ensure that that housing option is sustainable. So I don't know if now's a good chance to stop for any questions on that.
Yeah, that's fine. Any questions? No, I see none. Excellent, Victoria. Carry on.
Okay. We'll move on now to the allocation scheme. So this is what we're seeking approval to implement at the moment. It's what we'd like to take forward to Cabinet and full council. And this is in relation to the housing list and social housing. So an updated scheme is necessary to ensure the council can deliver the most effective housing service and is also legally compliant. And within the proposed scheme, there's a few aspects I'd just like to touch on. So the first one is the process by which social housing is allocated. So in this, we're proposing a hybrid scheme. So the majority of applicants can exercise choice in this by indicating which of the available properties they would like to live in. And this would be facilitated through a weekly bidding process through an online system. For households who have additional needs, or for those who are unable to access the internet, we can facilitate through processes such as assisted bidding and alternative communication methods. This means the applicants have a more active role in looking for a new home. It also means they know what is available and where they are more likely to be successful in their bids. We'll also offer a system of direct lets for specific properties, for example, where there's an urgent housing need or for vulnerable households. And we're also proposing to implement a nominations process where there are more than 5 new build properties are becoming available on a development. So applicants will be able to bid for that development, and then they will be matched to a suitable property available. And then this means the applicant has been able to make a choice in where they live, but the council is able to best manage the lettings process of the new properties coming through and ensuring that those in the most need are able to access them. So have we got any questions on that so far? Nope.
Excellent. Can I just make I just wanted to say something. I mean, I think what you've just spoken about is really important because it follows on from what Campbell Tickell said, and a couple of things leapt out to me from their report, which obviously we're now looking to address, Victoria, in what you've just been talking about. And they were saying about the way we're working at the moment is currently passive and not proactive. They said our structure was haphazard, and it was about a race to the bottom. And I think what you've just sort of explained there, that what we're trying to do is actually address all those things and make it much more equitable and transparent, and actually a more user-friendly experience. So we actually give people a good experience and a good outcome. So for me, I think that's really important. So I just wanted to say that. I think that was appropriate at that moment, hopefully. So, but we can move on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree. Okay. So just in terms of how we give priority to those on the list then, so we're proposing to have a 4-banded system instead of the 3 we have currently. So this means that we can introduce an urgent band for those in very high housing need or in temporary accommodation. So the diagram at 5.31 of the report gives an indication of the structure of the bands given the current housing list. If you compare it to the current structure at 3.1, you can see the difference it makes for the really urgent cases. So I think at the moment you've got the current high band, which has sort of over 200 people on it. And then if you look at the proposed structure, you've got the urgent cases with about 45 people on it. So it just means that they have got that extra bit of priority. And again, it also provides transparency for the households in understanding their position on the housing list. We're also proposing within the banding system, so where there have been previous issues with households in terms of antisocial behaviour or rent arrears, a process of suspended bidding. So previously applicants would have been placed in a reduced preference category. However, now they would be given their priority banding as normal, but they would not be able to bid until they've undertaken a period of stabilisation work with us. So that would be working with us and other organisations to reduce rent arrears or address their behaviour. And once the agreed outcome has been achieved, the suspension would be removed and they would be able to bid. So in this way, the applicant is working with the council and other organisations to resolve issues and ensure their future tenancy is sustainable. I just want to caveat that as well. So we would really carefully assess each applicant's circumstances before implementing this. I think we'd had queries before about whether someone who'd experienced domestic abuse would be subject to that, and of course not. So anyone who's sort of coming up as vulnerable, then we would not implement that. We'd only do it where appropriate. Have we got any questions so far on that process?
Councillor Shaw had his hand up. Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, it's not so much as what we've been talking about up to now. It's to do with the costs. Can I come in on that now, or shall I wait?
Do you want to go on, Victoria?
I was going to say, if you wanted to ask now, that's absolutely fine, but of course it's up to you, Chair.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely,
well,
yeah.
It's about the IT system costs. 86,000, I think it was 86,000. What does that actually cover? Presumably that is just software as opposed to hardware, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, Chairman. That's the software for the system, so that covers the whole software package that that we need to buy. The actual software is a slightly different conversation. In fact, the software we need to replace from April 21 anyway, because it's being de-supported. So we've got to replace it. So that's the new software system, the database that runs the housing system, if you like.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? What, 17,000 odd a year to keep it up to date?
Just to jump in there, the current, over a 4-year period, it will be a £70,000 saving. So yes, so those costs are significantly less than what we would be doing if it wasn't being done as one team. And then it's even more significantly less than if it was being dealt with and we were trying to maintain the systems that we currently have, which are costing, I think I haven't got the figures in front of me, but it's more circa around £35,000 a year. So over a 4-year period, we are saving significantly with this software.
Oh, that's good. It's just that I'm so used to seeing software costs. I don't mean at Broadland, but I mean generally, and they always make me jump.
Well, I'm surprised as well, Councillor Shaw, but yeah. I'm assured that that's the way these things cost these days.
As Mike said, whatever happens, we were going to have to replace our system. So whether we stay with the current system or change, we had to change it. So it's a good time to look to move forward and do things better, really, if that's possible. So I think it's a good opportunity there.
Yeah.
Councillor sorry.
No, I was just going to say the figures that Richard were referring to is on page 226 of the report.
That's right. Yeah, correct. Sorry, Councillor. Councillor Neeson.
Yeah, thank you. It's gone back to that 4-band thing, so not about the cost of the IT. What I was wondering is, and it might be in here somewhere, but I couldn't see it. Obviously, I see like the numbers in the first 3 banding are relatively low in comparison to the 4th banding, which has got 1,111 in there. What's the likelihood of people in the lower bandings actually getting rehousing?
Shall I pass over to Richard? Do you want to explain some of the background to this about where we were and where we are now? Because I think that's quite important to understand that context, really. Because we're significantly higher than this. So, I'll just pass it over to Richard so he can explain it.
So we've done an exercise to cover off a third point. Thank you, Councillor Waymark. The register was nearer 2,500 people on the register. And we've done an exercise we've basically written to everybody within the low band and said, would you still like to be on the register? Do you still need to be? They didn't reply. We've deleted them from the register. So that's made it significantly smaller than it was. We think we can still go further because there are still people on the register who have been there for quite some time. And I'm talking, like over 20 years. 20 years. Okay. So on one hand, there's more work to be done, but I imagine that the numbers, once we've finished that exercise, we'll look around 1,000 across the whole board, across all 4 bands in total. So that will be even less. When you say to band 4, of course, it is a lot harder for people in band 4 to get those properties. The people who are normally successful within band 4 are twofold. One, if there's a Section 106 property, so they get with a Section 106, because they've got a local connection to that ward, the Section 106 kind of overrules the other elements of the allocations policy, so they gain a property through that way. So it's still valuable for them to be on there. The other way is if you have a property which is more desirable, they're not going to get that property. But what they will do is get the property that the people leave who have moved into that more desirable property. So they get the more undesirable properties, but we do have undesirable properties due to the age of some of the stock which is out there. But they are still a house, they're still a roof and they're still a house over these people. Those older properties tend to have bigger gardens, so they're more suitable for some people than they are with others. So it's a way of making sure they're like an all capture at the end of it. And they will, I can't sit here and say that 1,100 people are going to get a house, but I can say that maybe 60, 70 throughout the year will get that house, but they're in that lower band because they aren't in that urgent need. So they're kind of on there in the hope that they will get that property.
Thank you.
Lovely.
And the people
Thanks,
in
Richard.
that, I mean, obviously I see I'm hoping band 1, they should get rehoused or some sort of temporary accommodation or some sort of accommodation quite quickly. Are the band 2 and 3 people, are they likely to wait long, or do they currently wait a long time?
So again, it depends on what area they've said that they want to live in. With the current system, if they say that they want to live in prescribed areas and that there is high demand, low supply within that area, that will be a lot longer than someone else who goes into a more high supply, low demand. The band 2, you will hopefully will see quite a decent throughput through there. Band 3, I mean, by its very nature, the lower down you go down the band, the less competitive you are to get that property. However, by making sure that you put your preference in and put those bids on the system, it's a kind of system where you never know. You may be surprised by the properties in which people do get.
Yeah. And this example that you have on page 58 of the 4 bandings, obviously that's the Broadland band and exercise. Is that similar for South Norfolk, or do you know?
I do know, yes.
Yeah. Are you allowed to tell us?
yeah, of course. Yeah. It's essentially the same pyramid. You get more people at the bottom. The register at the moment is around 800 at South Norfolk. So you just reduce every band by a proportion. Yeah. In the highest band, you're looking at about 20. So rather than the 40, which is currently in there, you're looking at 20. So yeah, so you just proportionally reduce that down.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's okay.
I just wanted to give you, a real life example of how things work currently, because at the moment someone nominates an area, and I know in my area, it's, Wroxham, someone nominated to be in Wroxham. Well, there's very few properties come up in Wroxham, but with the new allocations policy, which we're looking to implement here, someone would actually have access to, well, as I say, so that person who's nominated Wroxham would only see properties in Wroxham. Okay, they wouldn't see anything outside of there. So say, for instance, where I live, I live in Rackheath. So with the new policy, if something come up in Rackheath, which is just down the road, or Salhouse, people would see that. So it just gives people a bit more flexibility and a bit more choice. And that's what it's about, is choice and flexibility. So those people in those lower bands would actually, who at the moment would almost be landlocked by Wroxham, should we say, in this instance, will have that flexibility and think, actually, there's a property just down the road and I can move there and that would work for me. So yeah, I mean, I think it works in so many different ways.
And the choice lies with the customer. We are in no way telling people that they have to move out of the area that they want to move out of. They have that choice. They're overcrowded by one bedroom. Is the situation of remaining in a house which is too small for them worse than moving to a neighbouring village? One is more important to the customer. What we're saying is it's your choice to make that choice yourself and decide.
So can I just comment as well? Sometimes people just don't realise that they have got that choice, and they think that they're going to be much better off by just simply sticking to the one area. But sometimes when they see the bigger picture, they then realise, Critchaw's just a little bit up the road, or at Salhouse, or somewhere along the way. They would be happy to move, but they just hadn't considered it previously. So this now gives them that opportunity to reconsider the options that they've got.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what it is, as you say.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real strength in this, really.
Yes.
Particularly for individuals, for our residents, that they can actually see things which they just couldn't see before, So that choice is there for them. So excellent. Yeah, great. Was there any more questions? Councillor Folger? And
yes, just a quick one. What is the situation on the provision of temporary accommodation? Because hitherto, within Broadland, we had an ability under the private sector leasing scheme to provide accommodation for people who required temporary accommodation, and indeed bought a couple of properties. Is that situation continuing at the present time?
in a nutshell, yes. We're also looking to add to it as well. So we're looking to maybe lease some shorter term temporary accommodation to add to our the offer in which we have for temporary accommodation. What is in really a great situation in Broadland is you've got a wide range of offer within temporary accommodation. So you've got that short term until they get that housing association or private rented property. But for those people who are struggling or isn't quite ready and they need that extra support, you've got the private sector leasing stock to be able to utilise for that. So we've got a wide offer to be able to put the right people within the right properties.
Richard, would you like to speak about the discussion we're having with Clarion about housing first? Is that appropriate now?
Yes, we don't know whether we're going to be successful in the bid yet.
No, but that's one of the avenues we're looking at. That's the point. Yeah.
One of the frustrations of the team is you have people who aren't ready to take on a social house and aren't really suitable to go into a support accommodation provider, largely because they are far too chaotic. What the conversation then happens is we go to support providers and say, can you support this person? We'll provide them with a house. They say, no, you need to give them a house before we provide them with a support. And we end up in a catch-22 where no one's willing to step first. What we're looking to do with Clarion is what's called a housing first model, whereas we give them a house. So through Clarion, they get the house. We're as part of our bid, we'll have 2 support workers dedicated to those 10 properties, which we're looking to purchase through Clarion. And so it will be 5-to-1 support with them. That's not all the support they'll get. They will coordinate the wider support, mental health, drug abuse, CG, Change, Grow, Live, medical services, also working alongside the police to help with any rehabilitation that's needed. So that will provide a holistic support, but whatever happens, unfortunately, the support which is out there, you have to be able to coordinate it, and people who are chaotic in nature find that very hard. So that support element will be able to ensure that happens. We're hoping to hear about the success of that bid very shortly, and that will be another what's the word I'm looking for? String on our bow.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Crotch.
Yeah, thank you. Two questions if I can. The first one is just around the bidding process, and I'm assuming this is very much an online platform that people will use. And on the assumption that it is an online platform, is the provision there for maybe vulnerable or older people or whoever it may be that doesn't have access to the internet to still get a fair crack of the whip? Would be the first question.
So there's 2 options there. One is assisted bidding, where we essentially go more down the nominations route and say, what are your interested area and what kind of property do you want? You can then set them up on the system, so a bid automatically goes onto the system when a suitable property comes up. The alternative is you send out the list, so rather than them going on the website and getting an advert, you print it off and that gets sent to them. They can ring up and then say, please, can you place a bid on that property?
Okay. Yeah, so it gives a level playing field. That was just what I was just trying to get to. Thank you for that. My second question is just in respect to page 60 and point 6.3, which is just some numbers. And it was the split between South Norfolk and Broadland. And the split of South Norfolk saying 3,275 and for Broadland at 69,711. Which was total contract change being shared with a standard 45-55 split. I just wondered if those numbers were correct.
Yeah,
those numbers are the savings, Councillor Crotch. So the reason that Broadland is a much higher saving than South Norfolk is South Norfolk did a purge on their systems a few years ago.
Okay.
So in fact, their the saving they're going to make is a lot less than Broadland will over 4 years.
Okay. No, thank you. Just because it looked so out of kilter, I thought I'd just check it. But brilliant. Thank you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Right, back to Victoria.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Victoria.
That's fine. That's actually quite timely, actually, because the next bit I was going to talk about was in terms of access to the housing list. So with that, we're proposing a single point of access across Broadland and South Norfolk, and that will be through that one single system, which just means we get a consistent approach for the team. So when applicants are bidding for properties, they can see what's available across both districts on the system and can place bids on those properties. But properties would be allocated firstly to those in the district where the property is located. And then, as I said, it would go in that sort of priority need banding of 1 to 4. But if at that point the property isn't let, it will be offered out to applicants in the other districts. And again, that would follow the priority bands. So for example, if there is a property in Broadland and it hasn't received any successful bids through the banding 1 to 4, it would then be open to people bidding from South Norfolk. And again, that would go in priority banding 1 to 4. So the caveat around this is properties that will have a Section 106 agreement or a local lettings agreement attached, as that would apply overall that at all times. But what this approach means is that we steer away from having any empty properties across the districts. And these are properties that would make a home for someone. So, you know, we need to sort of have them filled. But it also reduces the risk of antisocial behaviour and provides a bit of mobility for the residents between the two districts. So have I got any sort of final questions on that aspect?
Do you mind if I just clarify something?
Of course you can, yep.
So everybody will be able to see everybody's property when they log on. So any property, whether it's SNT, BDC, people will be able to place it in, to put a bid on. However, on every advert, it will say very clearly, like it does with Section 106 properties, following shortlisting, if, as this property is located in Broadland, any person bidding from South Norfolk who does not have a local connection to Broadland will be placed under anyone from Broadland. Okay, so it's after the effect that the shortlisting then comes in. So we'll make it very clear, because we want to make sure that anybody who is interested in that property can show an interest, but after the effect, all the shortlisting puts everybody in order as per the diagram in point 5.31.
Lovely. Thanks, Richard. Thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Okay. I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay. There are a couple of things I just wanted to clarify, really, and it's probably a legal thing, but on page 182, it's under non-qualification rules. It's F. It refers to if someone's paying rent weekly, basically there should be no greater than 14 weeks rent, and if the rent is charged weekly or greater than, oh, sorry, yeah, hang on, no. They have rent arrears or court costs greater than 14 weeks rent if the rent is charged weekly, or greater than 4 months if the rent is charged monthly. So why is it 14 weeks if you're weekly and 4 months if it's monthly? Because 4 months would be at least 16 weeks, wouldn't it? It just seems, I didn't know if there was a legal reason why that was the case. Because it just doesn't seem equal.
There's no legal reason. Sorry, Victoria, do you mind me
answering? No, of course not.
There's no legal reason. I think we've just worked out with the weekly that people who are charged weekly rents are more likely to be in social housing properties, and people who are charging monthlies will be in private sector. We are happy to amend that. That's honestly not something that we are strictly adhered to. It's just how we worked it out in the policy.
Okay. I mean, I just thought, yeah, to say that they didn't seem equal, and I thought that perhaps should be.
I think
I don't know other people's thoughts, but yeah. Okay. And also on page, and it's just probably a typing error really, but page 203, it was 5.2.3. We're talking about the 7 days are being from Wednesday to Thursday. I thought that should be probably Wednesday to Tuesday. Would that be when the online scheme would be open?
So it's Wednesday
to Thursday.
What number you want, Fran?
5.2.3. It's page 203 in the papers. Right at the bottom there. Yeah. So they're advertised online on the allocation schemes for a period of 7 days from Wednesday to Thursday. So I thought that should probably be Wednesday to Tuesday, I guess.
Yeah,
that's maybe a typo.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. All right. And the other thing I wanted to ask is on page 223. It's talking about the appeals process, and it talks about it's actually on C here Appendix 3, C. Requests and appeals must be submitted to Broadland South Norfolk by email. Okay. I mean, obviously, we said about people being supported. Obviously, this is if you go to the appeal, you need some other process there to support people who haven't got access to email. So I just thought that was basically making it more difficult for people to appeal who might have greater difficulty. So
we'll change that. You're well noticed, Councillor Weinmark, thank you. Okay. We'll take an appeal by phone, but if someone's unhappy with their decision, we'll take it by phone, and then what generally happens is the officer writes down the email simply. The way in which we work as an operational team is as soon as an appeal comes in, an email goes into the appeals officer to be able to do that. So we've just tried to keep it technically operational when really anyone can appeal any means that they want.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay,
we'll change that also.
No, so there's only one other thing I wanted to ask as well. It's page 213, and let me just find it. Sorry, it's on page 213. Yeah, it's in the prevention here, which I think is really important. It says each case presenting high priority need will be assessed to see if there's prevention solution. Do you need to clarify that, because now we're talking about, we did have 3 bands with high being the highest as such. Now we've got bands 1, 2, 3, 4. Do we need to put bands 1 and 2 in there rather than high?
Let's have a look. And did you say that was page 213, Joe?
213, yeah, in prevention. It's in the first line there.
That could be clarified, Chairman. Yeah. So yeah, high band 1 and 2. We can be more specific. That's no problem.
Sorry, Councillor. Would you mind? Is that 5? Sorry, because I'm working from my computer.
It's page 49 on your report as such, but page 213 in the papers. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just thought, because obviously high was a band in the current system, but obviously it's not going to be a band in the new system.
Yeah, we can change that, Chairman. So yeah,
we need to, if we're going to get our policy right, we need to do that. Really, that was it really for me. I was pleased about everything else. I was very pleased actually. I thought it was a really good comprehensive report, and obviously following on from Campbell Tickell, I think it's enormous. Well, I know there's an enormous amount of work that's gone in here. I know it has, and I sort of just want to thank the team really throughout. So yeah, is there any more questions? No. Okay, all right. Well, the recommendation is.
Oh, sorry,
Sir Morrell's got his hand raised. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry. Yeah. It was just one, because we hadn't actually gone into the Campbell ticket report. But there was just a couple of things in there that I was just having a look, and probably just clarification more than anything else. So page 85, where it's got the table of the property zones under 4.36, and then it's got section 4.37, which then initiates about the large financial cost of the private sector leased properties. And then Richard said earlier about that we were looking to just lease some more properties. So my concern there would be is obviously it's already been highlighted within the report that this is the most expensive option for doing it, and yet we're now saying, well, we're actually going to try and do some more.
Again, really well seen. Thank you very much. So there's 2 kinds of leases that we're currently running. You've got a HMO lease, housing multiple application, and you've got a kind of just a private lease where you lease a rental property from the private sector. The reason why that's costing quite a lot of money is, say the rent is £650–700 a month, but the LHA rate is £450 per month. We charge the £450 to the person that we put into the temporary accommodation, and then Broadland District Council essentially covers the money in between. The property I was talking about leasing beforehand is a HMO. So yes, you charge the
House and multiple occupation.
House and multiple occupation. Yes, the lease cost is more, but we essentially are able to pay for the officers that support those people in there through the money we gain from that rental income. So with the leasing that we do in the future, we're looking as per Campbell Tickell's review recommendations, we're looking at completely reviewing our PSL stock. Now, the PSL stock has a real value, as I talked about before. Okay, but what we need to do is start focusing on properties which are closer to the LHA rate, so that gap that we're covering, which comes out of the council budgets, is reduced as much as possible. Okay, and we're looking at the whole offer as a whole as part of this project.
Yeah.
Well, that was my sort of like question I was trying to get to as well, where obviously here we're spending £250,000 a year, and it's like sunk money. Whereas if we were to reinvest that and build some properties of our own to then utilise as the in the private sector lease property, have our own housing allocation, which then, yes, it's just a one-off cost, but we've then got the asset that we can actually use multiple year on year to carry it forward. So.
And that's Chairman, sorry, Councillor, I mean, the Chairman and I have discussed that in the past as well. You know, that is something, as we move forward with temporary accommodation, you know, there is a business case there. Do we look at, you know, purchasing and have more assets? Do we, you know, so I think that is a legitimate conversation. And that's part of the cycle of review that we'll be looking at in the future to find out what the best option is for us to get the maximum return. Because as you say, if we've got an asset anyway, then, you know, there is a potential win for us there in the long term.
Yeah, we are looking at different options where it could be much more cost effective for the council, you know, because as you say, that is just sunk money. Like £250,000, an enormous amount of money just to, you know, waste really.
Just in case,
use better. Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, that's gross. It's not net. So we get money in from it as well. But I'm not going to lie, it still costs a six-figure amount. It's more lower to the 100, low 100 rather than the whole 250. But everything you say is very true. And when you purchase a property, the way in which the benefit system works is also more favourable to you. So you are able to have more support in place, but that support is paid for through the benefit system. So all round, it's a better system, and it's something we're really seriously considering.
And obviously, with us talking about the importance of stabilisation, that's a critical part of it too, isn't it? Actually giving people the support so that at the end of that 6 months, when we actually sort of assess things again and we do a proper review, we can actually sort of hopefully have people in the right place so they can go back into a tenancy long term, you know, without problems. But if they have got problems, we can support them anyway to actually sort of maintain that tenancy.
And you're right, Chairman, and I mean, the biggest cost, the human cost and the cost of the system is revolving door. You know, just having people coming in and out. And that's, you know, when you're looking at rent defaulting and voids and, you know, the cost of the state overall, not just Broadland Council, that's the bit that, you know, we can really try a best in class model we'll try and avoid. Because what we want in the long term, as the Chairman said, is just we get people ready to maintain their own property, and that's ultimately the benefit to them and the benefit to us.
Great, thank you. Councillor Prutton, did you want to ask something? I wasn't sure if you had your hand up. No, okay, no, sorry, okay, fine, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much, Victoria, and well, everyone really. Thank you very much for all your work. Obviously, the recommendations on page 39 and 40. I'd like to recommend both 1 and 2. Obviously, at the moment, I think we've made a few comments on the findings of the final project report, and I'd like to recommend that Cabinet endorses that officers work towards a best-in-class housing model. That's part 1, and the second part was for us to note and comment on the draft allocation scheme prior to public consultation and subsequent presentation to Cabinet and Council for approval and adoption. I'd heartily like to recommend both of those to the Council. I think enormous amount of work's gone on. Where we are now is not sustainable. We needed to look at ourselves, and we've been able to, well, through Victoria really, managing to get a bid in to the local government association for the consultants to come in and help us from Campbell Tickell and give us a proper look at our system and how we can move forward. And I think we've got a good way forward personally. So yeah, I'd heartily like to recommend them to yourself.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think Councillor Lawn jumped in just before you, Councillor Ford. Just sorry.
Oh, that often happens.
Save it for another day. There you go.
Can I just say that I totally agree with everything that you said. I think the team have done fantastically. I think we're so lucky to have the team that we've got. I've said this on numerous occasions, and I keep saying it. Thank you very much for all the effort you've put into it. It really, really has been appreciated. And I think we've got a really fantastic product at the end of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Lawn. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we go to the vote, can we do it on a show of hands?
Yeah.
Dawn? Can you see us all? I think that's unanimous. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Great stuff. Okay. And I've lost my agenda now in all my papers for everything else. I think that's probably about it, really. Bear with me. Sorry about this.
Chairman, if you'll excuse me, we do have to leave at this junction, but many thanks for all the work's been done. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. It was just any other business. The only thing I was going to bring up myself under any other business was I have been in conversation with the Broadland meeting. I was going to, but we got a while really. But future meeting in December.
I'm really sorry, Chairman. You're breaking up. Can everybody else hear you?
Oh, sorry.
No, he's breaking up. I didn't hear a word of that.
Now. Could you just say that all again, please? I think it's because people were logging out as you were talking, and I think that was just breaking up the.
Problem whatsoever. That's okay.
Just say that.
So
all
can
again.
you all hear me?
No, you've gone again.
No.
Again?
Just say it really quickly.
Yeah. Has Joel logged onto your internet?
try switching the camera off.
Just say.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that was good.
Okay, good. Right. Okay, good.
You've been absolutely fine up until now, and for some reason you're just.
I don't know. I'm flagging after a long day. No.
I know what you mean.
One other is any honest.
We're still losing the chairman.
Sorry.
While we're waiting for the chairman to get, can I just ask? And I'm not sure whether this is a possibility or what we're doing in relation to this is. With COVID, I don't know where we're going to be in a month's time or 2 months' time, but we do have to. I would like to know where we're going with the mental health side of things. Are we looking into? Are we supporting anything? Are we? What are we doing with our figures on this side of, on the wellbeing side of things? Is there anything? Has Victoria gone?
We're doing. I mean, we can certainly bring something forward, an update on where we are for the next policy committee, for example. I mean, we're doing quite a lot around mental health and well-being in terms of officers and their work. It is a massive area, and that has definitely increased in terms of COVID. So yeah, it is something that we want to look at in the future. And so yeah, more than happy to bring something forward about that.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. Is the pressure that our staff are under, the officers are under. It's the pressure that we're seeing from outside coming in. As Richard has said, you know, just through the lockdown, your work has increased probably 100-fold. So you know, it'd just be good to know for our officers as well as for our residents what's happening. Jamie.
Okay, if I might add to Mike's response. I mean, it's a hot topic, isn't it? And you know, the point about staff wellbeing is something that we're working on actively. There was a lot of activity over the last few weeks around wellbeing materials pushed out to staff. Obviously, we're in the process of trying to bring staff back into offices to re-engage, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, re-engage staff back with their teams and the wider organisation after such a period of, as you say, Councillor Law, isolation. So yeah, from a staff wellbeing point of view, and the pressure, the workload, as well as the change in mode of operation, it's something we're actively working through. I think all I was going to say is to add to Mike's point, I think we have scheduled for perhaps the next panel meeting a review of our health and wellbeing framework, of which I'm sure you'll remember. I'm sure it's imprinted upon your brains. I won't test you, but one of the 4 areas of our framework was mental well-being, and it's a useful perhaps a useful report around which to have a discussion about what the council is engaged with around mental health and mental well-being, what's going on in the wider system, and what more we feel we ought to do. And I think that's both from a point of view of some of the sort of pre-COVID situations we were working up. Things around which would include, dementia, Alzheimer's, and those sorts of issues, as well as the impact in COVID. I suppose the only point I would make is, and obviously it's a bit of a moot point, and I know we all know it, but we're not, mental health is not within our gift. It's not a service we provide, and a lot of our remit around it is about taking a lobbying position and working in and amongst partners to try and encourage more resilience, more service offer to local people, and of course it's one of the central themes of one of the threads, if you like, of our homelessness strategy, which you guys signed off and has been endorsed subsequently by Cabinet at the last panel meeting. So it's absolutely something that's front and centre of our thinking.
Thanks, Jane. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, good. I'm back in the game. Good. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, following up on from that, Jamie, am I right to say we have trained up some of our staff as mental health first aiders? That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's really, really important. I mean, it's very extensive training. I've done it myself actually, but it's really important. Sorry, Councillor.
But sorry, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So we don't, unless you've sent emails or something out, and I haven't seen it, but we don't know that approach is there. Does that make sense? So
yeah, maybe it's something we need to put in the members' bulletin, really, to highlight to all the members what is being done to support the staff. Because I think there's an enormous amount being done, as Jamie has alluded to, but obviously things like the mental health first aid training, that some, how many have we got trained? Do you know, I'm putting you on the spot a bit.
12, I think. 12, Chairman.
12, yeah. 12 people, which is quite a significant number of people in the staff group, really, who actually have that training to actually support their colleagues, so with the staff knowing that they can go and talk to someone who will have an understanding. It makes a huge difference, as we know.
And I just can't imagine that there's many workplaces that would have that kind of support. I work in the hospital.
No, I know. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
I promise you, there's nothing like that. I don't think even one in our office. So that's excellent.
What I was trying to say when I disappeared, sorry, I'll pass over to you. But I've been speaking to the Broadland YAB, okay, and I wanted them to participate and give us their views around housing policy, but generally give us a presentation. So I've invited them to come to a wellbeing panel in the future, which will highlight their priorities, really, from young people's perspective. What are their priorities, so they can help us to form our policies and what we need to put in place for young people. So yeah, they will be coming along in the future. So I've made the invite to them.
Yeah, and they've got we actually got on the next policy committee in December, we've got a specific report about youth and young people issues, so it's perfect for those.
Yeah, they're coming along to that. Yeah, so that's excellent. So, but as I say, it'd be good for them to come to Wellbeing panel as well. But yeah, I know they're in for December, so that's really good. Yeah. Sorry, was anyone else wanted to add anything?
I was just going to add, if I may, in respect to the mental first aiders, which I think is a brilliant scheme. That one of the things, we don't have the same thing in my organisation, but what those people who are mental health champions, they always, and it's just been released, they can have it at the bottom of their emails to say that they are a mental health champion. I don't know whether it's done within Broadland, But again, it's just really good because when you receive an email, without having to broadcast it, it's actually there in, sort of in your face, so to speak, all the time, that you can see that somebody is an LGBT ally, that they are a mental health champion. And it's just a great way that people can just connect with people just via seeing emails. So just might be an idea that Broadland might want to take forward.
Excellent. That's good.
Yeah. If someone because a lot of people won't know what a mental health first aider is, even really. So just if we just, say someone said, I am a mental health, first aider, and just, I don't know, just one line underneath that they're there to support people, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, I think that'd be really good idea. Very simple, but effective. Very effective. Now, Councillor Shaw, did you want to speak? No? No? It's a no. Okay. Councillor Murrell.
Just a very quick question, hopefully, and it's not one that I expect you to have an answer right off the top of your head, but obviously with the COVID situation, do we know how many people are actually now in rent arrears and could potentially, once the safeguards have been taken away, could end up actually homeless?
I mean, all we know at the moment is the numbers who are ringing in with concerns around about. I mean, across South Norfolk and Broadland, it's about 2,000 a week. Or we're contacting them. But yeah, I don't think we've got any actual stats, and there's nothing about the moment. Or is there, Rich? Do you know any more?
We've done some modelling, but the modelling is largely for us to. I couldn't sit here and say that is what's going to happen. The modelling that we've done is largely to future-proof the team, to make sure that we have the amount of resource within the service the best we possibly can within, because obviously we could put 100 people on the housing team and we'd be able to meet the need without any issues whatsoever, but then that has a budgetary issue as well. So we have to balance the need, the stress that the organisation is under against the needs of what is going to come through the service. So we've done some modelling, and it obviously is going to go up, and we are going to see a peak over the next, especially within the next 6 to 12 months, but this impact is going to be felt. I can pretty confidently say for the next 2 to 3 years, because although to say you go into £1,500 worth of debt, you pay that back at £4 per week. That is a long period for you to only trip up once, and then once again you're in a difficult situation. So we have done some modelling, and we are just making sure that puts the team in the best places possible.
And have you had landlords coming to you advising that their tenants are in arrears? Or
yes, to be honest, it works the other way around. Normally we have the person call us and we ring up the landlord and find out, is there a way in which we can work with them as closely as possible to maintain their tenancy for as long as possible.
I think Richard, that's a central tenet as well as the best-in-class housing model. Isn't it, to take a more proactive view in terms of how we work with, engage, collaborate with the private sector leasing market, because it's not something we've typically managed to crack in South Norfolk or Broadland, actually.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, in the Campbell-Tickell report, and they're referred to it as being a transactional, relationship rather than a proper sort of service level agreement and a proper, two-way relationship, a proper sort of professional relationship, which obviously is what we want to establish, so that we can ring these people up and they can ring us up, and we can actually do something useful for people. So yeah, I think so. So it's important, really, very important indeed. There. Anyway, are there any other business? Sorry,
Chair, sorry, I just kind of want to, I know it may not be the most suitable opportunity, but thinking about with the YAB that you were talking about, the public consultation on this very matter, because it's in between, before it gets to Cabinet, and in between this, that goes live on Friday, providing everything goes okay at South Norfolk tomorrow. So that is an opportunity for people we're sending out to everybody on the register, but we're also sending out to partners. And I would encourage any members to also send it out to anyone that you would think would be suitable to feedback on that consultation, because I would rather be told that it's a good system or a bad system now, rather than when we've implemented it and done all that hard work.
Yeah, it's really important, really important. But will on your list, will the YAB be on there? They will be. Okay, 100%. All right. Okay. No, because I say otherwise I'd do it. But I mean, but if you're going to do it, that's fine. That's better, you know. But I know they really do want to be involved. You know. Yeah, and we had a really useful meeting with them, and I actually had a conversation yesterday with them, and I said I'd go to another one of their meetings in the future, which I know a number of councillors I went to, including some people who are sitting in front of me here now. So see Sue smiling. She was but yeah, brilliant. Okay, lovely. I think that's the end of the meeting. Maybe it was the end of the meeting 5 minutes ago, but I better call it to a close at 7:22. Okay.